Hello and welcome to All About Boston. I'm Sept McCoy. The show tonight is pre-taped, so if you were hoping to call and talk to any of the candidates tonight for mayor, you'll have to hold your questions until you see them out at one of the many forums that are happening throughout the city. My guests tonight are John Barros, City Councilor Charles Yancey, and City Councilor Mike Ross. John Barros is my first guest tonight, so without further ado, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Seth. Good to be here.
I have to say that it's a pleasure having you here. We literally bumped into each other on the street, and now you're here and first appearance on All About Boston, and I'm excited to have you.
It's great. Excited to be on the show.
So you're running for mayor, one of 12. Why are you running for mayor?
Yeah, I'm running for mayor to give back to a city that's given me and my family so much. My father came here in the 1950s. Worked on a cranberry bog first, making 10 cents an hour. Finally got a living wage job and moved to Boston to raise his family, and it's been a great place for us.
Yeah. So if you're elected mayor, what are some of the major policy things that you want to focus on?
Major policy things, and I'll rattle them off real quickly and come back. Education, economic development and opportunity for everyone, environmental issues, particularly climate change, responsible policies around climate change, the arts and safety.
Yeah.
And education is my top issue.
Yeah.
We've got to make sure that every child has an opportunity for a quality seat in the city of Boston.
Yeah. How are you going to do that? I mean, that's obviously one of the biggest issues that everybody is talking about this campaign season. How would you go about changing the Boston Public Schools to make them better? Are you for a lift on the charter cap, or do you see that the Boston Public Schools can just be fixed the way they are?
We need to make sure that our schools have all the tools they need to be successful. First is, I think I have been calling for a citywide learning system. So we need to think beyond schools. We need to think about early childhood development, 0 to 5. I'm about to have my second child, as you know, and 0 to 5 development is critical. The 87% of the brain is developed by the age of 3. So if you're waiting until they get to kindergarten, you're late, right? And the awful thing about it is, most of our students get into kindergarten, particularly from families of color or low-income families, are coming in with a 4,000 to 6,000 word gap. And so if the district has to try to bridge that gap from kindergarten on, then we're not set up to succeed.
Right.
So early childhood development, and then every school has to have a longer school day. We need to provide more for our students. Some students get it because their parents are putting them in ballet or in some kind of little league opportunity after school, and some students don't because schools don't offer it. Right. Boston needs to offer it for all our schools. Then our schools need to have the kind of autonomies they need to make the decisions they need, which is why, I've promoted from the beginning that we should move authority from the district to the schools. We should move resources from the district to the school level, and make sure that the teachers and the school leaders have the opportunity to make decisions around staffing, scheduling, curriculum, and partnership.
Yeah.
Those are the 4 autonomies that we know works to turn around schools, and what the Barros administration would make sure they have.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you make is that the schools should be deciding how the money is spent, not Court Street. Obviously, we need to have some sort of administration over the schools, but the day-to-day operations should really be the responsibility of, the individual principal at each school.
That's right. All over the country, we haven't turned around districts.
Right.
That's not how it works. We turned around schools.
Right.
We've helped improve schools. So why not focus on schools and give the schools what they need to make it work?
Right. How would you pay for it, though? I mean, that's obviously the follow-up is you have all these great ideas, but then how do you go about implementing them, especially in today's economy where, we are still cash-strapped, we're on the recovery road, but it's certainly not to where we were before. So how would you pay for it?
It's amazing. The longer school day, I think we make work because we stagger teacher schedules. We have some teachers start really early, and some teachers come in later.
Yeah.
And teachers who start early obviously go home earlier, and the teachers who start later go home later. And then we fill it in with partners. There are tons of partners who want to work with BPS, work with our schools, who are existing partners now, some of them who want to be partners with BPS. We need to bring them in. But they need to come and work with our students under teacher and instructional guidance. And having the teacher schedule be flexible enough so that we can guide those partnerships will help us leverage existing money. We also need to make sure that we're doing better coordination for our students out of school. So for instance, one of our big issues in Boston Public School is the high mobility rate. We have an average 12% mobility rate for the school district, which is too high. But in certain schools, it's as high as 30, 40. then that's ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? And so how do we then coordinate the city's existing housing services to those students and say in Boston, no child will go homeless. No child in our district will go homeless. And as mayor, I'd push that and make sure that we don't need new money necessarily until we can really effectively use the money that we have and that's existing.
Do you think that's part of the problem, is that nobody's really sat back and looked at the problem as a whole? I feel like over the years it's sort of like, oh, these are certain issues that are, trouble spots, and so they're targeting these little things here and there, but not looking at the overall picture.
You're absolutely right. I think the problem is we work in silos. Yeah. We do not coordinate, we don't leverage, we don't form enough partnerships. When Mayor Menino drew a circle around an area in Boston where most of the public schools were failing, he asked a question, simple question, what are the programs, who are they serving, and what the impacts were? We couldn't answer those questions. And we couldn't answer the questions around collaboration or data, or we need to know. We need to know if we are funding nonprofits, if we are partnering with different groups, what their impact is, how much money they're using, and who they're coordinating with, right? And we can get more out of the existing resources and as executive director of the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative for the last 13 years, the last 5 of which I've spent organizing a planning process for building a promised neighborhood, a neighborhood where quality schools drive the quality of living. And we've leveraged $70 million locally of existing funding to make sure that our children were given the right services and what they needed to succeed in schools. We can do that all over the city. Yeah,
you make a good point about the nonprofits too. That was something I had thought about years ago. We have all these different nonprofits who do the same thing, but none of them coordinate. And part of that is, personality clashes, or, this organization doesn't want to help that organization because then it, takes away their strength in some sort of weird way. But that to me is frustrating because there are so many programs out there that could be helping everybody if they all just got along, if you will.
That's right, and we need to incentivize those kind of partnerships. We need to incentivize collaboration. We need to incentivize people working with others, particularly if you have a common mission, right? Yeah. Sometimes in order for your program to be successful, someone else's program needs to work. Yeah. And sometimes, all the time, when systems are failing, then other systems are hurting because of it. For instance, if our housing system is not stably housing our children, our schools can't be doing better. If we can't handle public health issues like asthma and some other things, our students can't even go to school.
Right.
So we depend on each other. Same thing with nonprofits. If I'm doing an after-school program that is, focusing on math, and the school knows that their students are in that after-school program, but that after-school program is having no impact, you might have a false sense of security, and we're wasting money on a place that we should have been having some impact on.
Right. Let's talk about the arts, because that's another important thing for you. Why do you think the arts are so important for kids?
The arts are critical. I've got a personal bias as an artist. I'm a drummer, and I'm also a visual artist, and so I have a long history in Boston of painting murals. And it has just been, for me personally, an opportunity to really think about who I am in context to the whole community, to have conversations about issues that sometimes might be difficult to express in words, and that we can do together through art to help beautify the space and really help bring different themes together.
Murals.
I love murals. My first big art project, big public art project, was a mural we started in 1990. Yeah. The Conversations. And we had conversations in 3 summers. Yeah. And we brought more than 300 young people together to have a conversation. At the end of the summer, and think about 1993, no graffiti guard on this mural. Right. When all the adults said, oh, you have to protect it, have to protect it. We didn't protect it because the young people in the neighborhood, there were so many young people that had got involved with the planning that they protected it. Right. They said, don't touch it, that's our mural.
Exactly. I have a great idea. So obviously throughout the city of Boston, there are all these signs welcoming people to different neighborhoods. And right now it says Mayor Tom Menino on it. Yeah. If you become mayor, you could actually implement it so the signs are artist renderings, whatever they are, paintings, absolutely, whatever, and then have the artist sign and welcome people to their neighborhood.
I love it. Love the idea. It's an efficient way that we can actually save a lot of money.
Absolutely.
And get people to participate in public art.
Yeah.
It's a community building project.
Because I'm going to tell you, and I know I'm going off on a side tangent right now. But,
we love it.
But the amount of money that it's going to cost to replace all the signage in the city of Boston that currently has Mayor Tom Menino on it is, I can't even imagine what that cost will be. But this would be a good way to eliminate that cost for down the line future mayors and That's my 2 cents.
Well, I'm going to take your 2 cents and save some 2 cents for the city of Boston.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's talk about public safety. That's another huge issue in the city of Boston. Obviously, we had the tragedy of the Boston Marathon bombings, but since then there have been over 100 people shot in the city. How would you, as mayor, work to make the city streets safer?
Yeah, public safety is a big issue. Growing up in Roxbury, one of the 3 neighborhoods that suffers 80% of the city's violence. It's been present in my life in a way that it shouldn't be. We need to make sure that first and foremost we are investing in the people of the city of Boston, that we are investing in young people, that we are providing summer jobs, year-round jobs, that we're providing the best educational system that we possibly can, that we're connecting young people to college, that we're connecting young people to careers, and that we are making sure that we're supporting them through that journey so they're succeeding in college and succeeding in careers. And investing in people is the most we can do to make sure that we are building a safer Boston. If we're trying to fight crime at the tail end by preparing to arrest more and more people, we're in trouble, right? We've got to create a more productive city, and we know that jobs correlate to decrease in crime. It's the first place that started. And then we need to stabilize our families. Poverty is really a problem in the city of Boston, a growing problem, where almost a quarter of the city is under the poverty line, the federal poverty line.
Right.
And that's a problem. We can't have 20, 22, 23% of Bostonians not being able to live in a quality life here in Boston.
There's no middle class really any longer. It's it's the people
We
who
have a
have
growing,
a lot and then everybody else.
Yeah, that's right. And so, if you go to my platform on my website, you'd find that I'm calling for building mixed income communities, which means that affordable housing has to be a priority in the city of Boston. But it's affordable housing for, working families. It's affordable housing for low income families. It's affordable housing for middle class families, really up the rung, where we have all Bostonians able to stay in the city of Boston.
Absolutely, because a lot of people do want to stay here, but part of the problem is they're getting priced out because, truthfully, I had just been house hunting, and a lot of the cost of condos were so huge, and of course people, because the economy is getting better, so then people were bidding $20,000-$30,000 above the asking price, so it prices people out.
Seth, I got to keep you in Boston.
I know. Well, we did find something, so we're here.
Good.
So we are here.
Excellent.
But yeah, it's just obviously there are people out there who won't be able to stay in Boston, so that's a big issue. And as you mentioned, you do need to have middle income and lower income housing available for people. So we are almost out of time, but I have 2 things for you. My first question is, and I had asked all the at-large councilors this, so I'm going to, or at-large candidates, this question. Have you been to FOMU on Center Street in JP?
I have not.
Okay, so that's my word of advice for you today.
Okay.
In addition to doing the murals to welcome people to neighborhoods. So FOMU is a vegan ice cream spot, and it's the best ice cream you will ever have. So next time we talk, I want to hear that you've been there.
Okay.
They have a location in JP and
FOMU.
one in Alston.
Yep.
And the other one is, you mentioned that you are anxiously awaiting your second child.
Yes.
Do you know if it's boy or girl?
It's a boy.
Ah, darn it.
Oh.
See, I was gonna then ask you to name your daughter, Seth. But since you're going to have a boy, I can't really do that.
I appreciate it,
I'm
Seth.
trying to, change that whole, boys are not only named Seth.
Yeah, so I'll make sure not to name him Seth so that we can have, one less boy named Seth.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So I want to give you the opportunity to tell people at home why they should vote for you on September 24th. It's right around the corner.
It is around the corner. And, I'm asking for Bostonians to vote for me on September 24th because I'm the mayoral candidate that's helped turn around a section of Boston that a lot of people had given up on. Building affordable housing, improving the small business main streets landscape, engaging young people and making them agents of change as opposed to liabilities in our neighborhood. I've done this for most of my life, and I've done it successfully at the Dudley Street Neighborhood Initiative, where I've been the executive director for 13 years. And I can take that to scale and to the rest of Boston, making sure all Bostonians are prospering and making sure Boston continues to grow and is affordable for all of us to continue to live here. Please vote John Barros September 24th. Thank you.
Great. So I want to thank you so much for being here, and I want to wish you luck on September 24th. And I want to remind people that they need to go out and vote on September 24th. You have a lot of choices to make at large city council, for mayor, and if you live in a district that has a district race, then obviously that's another opportunity for you to voice your choice. And we are going to be right back with City Councilor Charles Yancey. Welcome back to All About Boston. I'm Sept McCoy. Joining me now is City Councilor Charles Yancey, who is running for mayor. Councilor Yancey, welcome back to the program.
It's always a pleasure, Seth, and congratulations on the new format.
Thank you. I really like it, and I like how David and Hillary have set up the stage here, so it's good.
They do a great job for us.
And I should add that you're running for mayor, but you're also running for re-election.
I'm keeping my name on the ballot for District 4 only. So in one of the 9 districts, folks may think Charles Yancey is so nice, they may vote for him twice.
Exactly. You never know.
But I'm running for mayor of Boston.
So,
In part, quite frankly, is because of the 30 years of experience I have with city government.
yeah, you're the most senior member of the Boston City Council.
And have been for some time.
Yeah.
And it's been an honor and a privilege for me to serve the people of Boston. But now it's time for me to go to the next level.
Spread your wings.
Yes, and Tom Menino and I were elected to the City Council the same year. He served for 10 years on the council before becoming mayor. And I believe that after I'm elected mayor of Boston, I will be the first time that someone has had 30 years of experience in city government before being elected mayor.
Wow.
At least in the last century.
What made you decide to run for mayor?
Well, a number of things. I believe I can do a lot more as mayor than as city council. I have, again, many, many years of experience dealing with public policy even before I was elected to the city council. And quite frankly, I'm pretty anxious to implement a lot of the policies that I've gotten passed on the city council.
What are some of the most important things for you if you became mayor, policy-wise, that you would want to implement right away?
Well, first of all, we have to invest in our schools in a much more serious level than we have to date. We have, as you know, for the last 15 years, I've been fighting to build a new high school for our high school children. We have 4,000 Boston Public High School students going to substandard facilities.
Yeah.
And neither the mayor nor the appointed school committee seem to care
Right.
about that. I don't mean to be harsh, but that's the reality. So number one would be to invest in our schools, to fully implement the law I got passed in 1994, the Parental School Leave Ordinance that encourages parents to get more involved in the schools. They can take 3 days off of their job to visit their children and participate in school activities. I want to make sure everybody knows about that. That's me.
Yeah, I was going to say, because that's something I've not heard about, but that's a really great plan because a lot of times parents are, strapped between having to go to work and whether or not they can take time away from their job to participate in their school, their child's education, and obviously this would give them that tool to be able to do so.
Yeah, and Seth, I like to call it the Alice W. Yancey Ordinance.
Is that your mother?
That's my mother. I never knew when she was going to walk through the rear door of the whatever classroom I was in at the time, and my dad would come unannounced as well. And being one of 9 children, and each and every one of us did okay going through the Boston public school system.
Yeah.
I think it's important for all parents to have that opportunity. They may not have the same flexibility that you and I may have to get away, but they must be a part of their children's education. So that, coupled with making sure that children have books to take home.
Yeah.
I know this is a digital age, but I don't think it's fair for the Madison Park High School students to have to take Xerox copies instead of textbooks home to study very serious topics. And that still happens. I don't know what's going on with this appointed school committee and the superintendent to allow that to exist in a budget that's approaching $1 billion. So I will correct that problem. As you know,
Yeah, that's a huge problem. I mean, that's ridiculous to me that people would be taking home Xerox copies of materials.
Right. And it's also unfair to the high school students to say that they have to go to the basement of the YWCA for their high school education.
Right.
In 2013, that's not acceptable. So we'll build a new high school. We'll make sure we have books and supplies and materials in the schools. And yes, we will continue the Charles C. Yancey Annual Book Fair. We've been doing that for 27 years.
Exactly.
As mayor of Boston, next year I'll be hosting it. It'll still be at the Reggie Lewis Center. Perhaps in the future we may even go to the South Boston Exhibition Center. But we must tell our children that we care about their education and prove it by providing them with the material and the books that they need.
Well, and you bring up 2 very good points there. One is parental involvement, and the other one is if we're showing the kids that we care about them and their education, they will I think, by nature, just do better because they know that people are showing that they care. But when you're giving them Xerox copies of materials and putting them in a basement to learn,
you're sending just the opposite message.
Exactly.
And we must let our children know that we believe they are first-class students and they deserve first-class facilities and material.
Yeah.
So the three basic things I'll do as mayor of Boston, you can judge me after my first and second term. We're going to make Boston the cleanest city in the United States of America.
Please do, because it's filthy right now.
You know, we can do
Especially right now around college kids moving in.
Yes, we can
Disgusting.
do it. Secondly, we're going to make Boston the safest city in the United States of America. And we have the resources. We hire more than 17,000 employees. So I'm not just talking about the police. I'm also talking about hiring outreach workers and mentors, as we've talked about in the past. We only have 30 street workers in the entire city of Boston.
Yeah.
Under the Yancey administration, that's going to grow to close to 300, and we're going to designate them to work in certain neighborhoods, to develop the working relationship with the families and the children, to intervene before our young people think about dropping out of school or picking up again. We can make Boston safer. And finally, again, it's going to be a cleaner city, it's going to be a safe city, and a city known to have the best school system in the United States of America.
So how are you going to pay for more street workers?
Well, my theory is that with increased education and increased information, we will decrease the need for police overtime. And we're going to use some of those dollars to hire outreach workers. But there's other areas in city government we're going to look at as well. I'm going to examine each of the city departments. And I will make sure that it's running effectively and efficiently. And if it's not necessary to fill some of those vacancies, we won't fill it. Or if it's necessary to transfer positions, I will do that. So I'm not talking about necessarily a significant increase in the size of the city's budget, but managing it better.
Right, exactly.
And by the way, we're dealing with a somewhat controversial issue that I know is not on our agenda, but I supported the rental registration ordinance.
Yep.
That would require everyone who owns more than 6 units of apartments to register and to have the units inspected. It was a very well-intentioned piece of legislation. Like I said, I supported it. Unfortunately, the implementation has gone awry.
You think?
And it's not fair to the property owners or even the general public. For example, when individuals put forth the best effort to register, they were told that there's no paper application, that they had to go online. So what about the senior citizen who doesn't know how to use computers, or others who are not as equipped as far as the digital divide goes as others? But worse than that, it's becoming almost punitive and a revenue generator. And that never was the intent either. So I'm using your program to ask the mayor of Boston to suspend the program until we have a public hearing so that we can work all these bugs out before people are being threatened with fines and fees.
Well, yeah, because there was a lot of confusion even in this last week, which people were supposed to be registered by today.
That's right.
But there was confusion as to, well, if you own a property and you live in it now but might rent it down the road, would you have to register? If you own a condo and rent out one of the units, like there was just so much confusion about who should be registering, why they should be registering, what the deadline is, how to do it. So
we have to clear that up before we implement this program. So I use your program. There's your news fast. I'm making that request directly of the administration.
Yeah.
Because it's well-intentioned, but it's creating more problems than it's solving. And there's no other major city in the country that has implemented this. And it may not be totally necessary, particularly if we do a good job in the assessing department to determine what's inside of each unit. So I don't think it's necessary at this point.
Right.
I'm asking the administration to suspend until we clear up some of the questions you asked and many, many others.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about public safety.
Yes.
So we obviously have some issues with public safety here in the city of Boston, especially after the Boston Marathon bombing. There have been numerous shootings, I think a little over 100 since the Boston Marathon attacks. How would you as mayor address the public safety issues? And also, not just for shootings, but there have been a number of crimes against women. We just recently had a young woman overdose at a nightclub. Yes. So there are different issues that are happening throughout the city that, in my opinion, are not being addressed
Yes.
properly. So how would you as mayor address?
And I agree with you in terms of a lot of these issues not being effectively addressed. That's why I will launch a national search for a new police commissioner. I think Commissioner Davis has done the best that he can, but we need a fresh approach. And I have many, many ideas. Some of which, as I mentioned, implementing laws that I got on the books. For example, in the late 1980s, I got a law on the books that says if there's a series of stranger sexual assault, it's the responsibility of city government to notify the residents of those particular neighborhoods. Now that is happening, certainly it's happening in the North End and downtown. I question whether it's happening in many of the other neighborhoods where unfortunately these assaults take place. And an assault against an individual in Roxbury or Dorchester or Mattapan is just as serious as an assault against an individual in the Boston Common.
Absolutely.
So we need to implement that law. It's called the Stranger Sexual Assault Ordinance, which I authored.
And we also need to work out the problems between the state police and Boston police communicating the information and getting out to the public.
That's right. And I support joint jurisdiction of Massport property so that we don't have that type of confusion. But with regards to the other issues, we've had hundreds, if not thousands, of shootings even before the marathon. Most homicides in the city of Boston are never solved.
Right.
That's totally unacceptable.
I agree.
Because what that means is, Seth, it means we have murderers walking our streets, and that's not acceptable.
Right.
I will put more resources in the cold case squad to make sure we deal with the backlog of cases. And I believe that the community desperately wants to work with the police department to solve some of these crimes.
I agree, and I frankly am a little tired of reading in the paper that crimes aren't being solved because people aren't helping the police solve them. I mean, part of being a police officer is you have the skills, allegedly, to be able to do the work to solve the crimes. Moving on real quickly because we're running out of time.
I
know we could talk probably for an hour
My
about this.
name is Charles Yancey. I'm running for mayor of Boston. I'm asking for your vote. Let me get that in. Okay.
The casino is another huge issue.
Yes.
Do you think it should be a citywide vote or just an East Boston vote? Do you support the casino?
Well, I have a novel proposal. Not too many people are listening, but I believe that there should be a vote, a weighted vote in East Boston. But I also believe that people in the entire city of Boston should vote on it. If, however, my modification of what's before us doesn't go through, I will support a citywide vote. And that's with all due respect to the people in East Boston who will be suffering the most negative impact of a casino. But we also would have a remediation package in there to address that issue.
Do you support it overall?
You know, I've become a lot more pragmatic these days. The reality is, people are going to gamble. I mean, I don't tell anyone, but every once in a while I buy a lottery ticket. Okay?
I'm going to buy a lottery ticket today, actually.
Okay, so we gamble.
Yeah.
And the question is, who's going to benefit from it? Because if folks are not spending those dollars in Boston, they're going to spend it elsewhere. So I would much rather have it in a controlled environment where the residents of Boston can get the maximum benefits and the minimum cost. I think it would make sense. But again, that's only because I've become a little bit more practical and pragmatic over time. But I think it could work, but we have to have a social infrastructure in place so that if people are addicted to gambling, we can get them resources fairly quickly.
Definitely, that's going to be a huge issue in my prediction down the line.
Yes.
So tell people at home why they should vote for you on September 24th.
Okay. Hello. My name is Charles Yancey. I'm running for mayor of Boston. I have more experience than any of the other candidates in city government. I am a very proud husband of Marzella Yancey and a very proud father of Charles Jr., Derek, Sharif, and Ashley, and proud grandfather of Noel. I have to get all my grandchildren there. Derek, Stephen, Amina, and David. Hattie, Amina family is up here visiting us from Florida. So Hattie, Grandpa says hello. I'm asking for your vote as mayor of Boston because I believe Boston can and will become the cleanest city in the United States of America under the Yancey administration. It will become the safest city in the United States of America under Mayor Yancey. and it will have the best schools in the nation. I didn't say best public schools, but the best schools. We live in a city that spends $2.6 billion. We employ more than 17,000 individuals, and I'll make sure each and every one of those employees know that they work for you. I will set the tone in city government. It's going to be a city government that will be accessible, that will be friendly, that will welcome people from all around the world, and tell them whenever they walk in the streets of Boston, they should walk around like they own it, because guess what? You do own the city of Boston, and we work for you. My name is Charles Yancey. I'm asking you to vote for me for mayor of Boston. I've been very successful in building a new police station where none existed, 2 new community centers, and a technologically advanced public library at 1350 Blue Hill Avenue in Mattapan. We ask all of you to come and join us.
Well, thank you so much for
Well,
being
thank
here
you,
today,
Seth.
and I wish you the best of luck. In just a couple weeks, it's going to be here before you know it.
And invite me back after we win the preliminary.
That's right. So
right.
I want to take a quick break, and we were going to be right back with City Councilor Mike Ross. Hello and welcome back to All About Boston. As I mentioned earlier in the show, this is a pre-recorded program, so if you were hoping to call in and talk to any of the candidates, we apologize, but we're pre-recorded tonight. But you can watch this episode over and over again on YouTube, and of course throughout the week here on BNN. My guest now is City Councilor Mike Ross, who is running for mayor. And Mike, I have to say, I've known you for a million years, so I was not surprised that you threw your hat in the ring to run for mayor, but tell people at home why you decided to make the jump from district councilor to running for mayor.
Well, I've been serving for 14 years as the district city councilor and former president of the Boston City Council. And throughout those 14 years and 2 years as president, I have brought innovative ideas to creating jobs to our schools, to improve our communities, and to modernize government. And that's exactly what I want to do as mayor.
What are some of your major policy initiatives that you would implement, like say the top 3 if you're elected mayor? And obviously we have to go through the prelim on September 24th and then the final.
Of course. Yeah, I mean, I think the boldest idea that I'm most excited about is transforming our high schools. And the way we'll do that is through a tech voc school that's second to none. You know, in Worcester, if your car breaks down, or if you have, a pet that needs to see a veterinarian, or, even if a group of seniors want to go grab lunch, all of those things you can do at the Worcester Tech High School. And that you can do across the Commonwealth and across the country, but you can't do that here in Boston. Madison Park, while it has those resources and components, I think we have such opportunity to build up that school. I would like to see my entire fleet of cars, for our police department and for our public works department, maintained at our Madison Park Technical Vocational High School.
Which is a great idea because it gives the kids practical experience on city vehicles.
Yeah, I mean, for that matter, I think everything we do here in Boston should be focused on putting people to work. I mean, why we don't buy, healthy, delicious school lunches from City Fresh Foods, who provides 8,000 lunches a day to charter schools. We could be putting Bostonians to work, and we could be giving healthy, good food to our kids.
Right, and that's an issue that you've talked about for a number of years, is the health and nutrition of kids in the schools, and obviously it's something that I care about. I'm vegan, as you know. Just quickly going back to the vocational aspect, you and I have talked before about the need for vocational schools here in the city, and not this whole focus on just kids going to college, because there are different jobs that kids can do getting out of high school that are great careers. But going back to the food, this is something that is so important, making sure that kids are healthy, because if you're sending kids to school and they're eating processed junk all day long, how are they able to learn? Because let's be real, you're eating that stuff and it kind of sets you into that mode at the end of the day.
It doesn't help. I mean, and it's why we need to do other things in our schools as well. We need to have early education. And I would start with the school that needs most help. Our school that is worst performing needs the most attention.
Right.
And that's how we're going to, and then we expand it to universal pre-K.
Right.
The same with extended day. I still remember when I was in high school, it was that art class that got me interested in sitting through physics, that our kids need too. Art, music, gym,
thing
computer
that
science.
you've advocated for is gym,
physical
ed.
education. As a city councilor, I brought it into my schools and then expanded working with Carol Johnson to all our schools. I'd like to see all electives. To do that, we'll have to extend the day. It's imminently doable. And then the second thing that I think is a real big picture item that after 4 years you will see, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, is you'll see the neighborhoods that shut down. Like, right about now, there are neighborhoods that are closed. It's time to go home.
Right.
There's nowhere to go. There's no place to shop. There's no restaurant. There's no place to gather. I don't think we're living up to our potential there. I think after my 4 years, you'll see those neighborhoods actually having, much more available to them.
Right.
It will be a great school, yes, but it's not just about one great school. It's about making that neighborhood great in other ways.
Yep.
I represent the Fenway community. We went from, people remember the Fenway, parking lots, gas stations, fast food restaurant, to what it is today, which is 2 million square feet of development, $2 billion invested. I think every neighborhood with the right planning, with the right amount of affordable housing, with the right amount of housing creation, and the right amount of businesses can be great.
Well, and you're right, and I think that a lot of times people are talking about the school system, which is very important for obviously families who have kids or people who are planning to have children, but in the discussion, a lot of times what tends to be missing is the people who don't have kids, don't plan to have kids, or kids just getting out of college who want to stay in Boston, but part of the deterrent to stay in Boston, among other things, is the fact that the city life isn't city life here, really. After a certain hour, everything shuts down and there's nothing to do, or no viable transportation to get home except for taxis. So yeah, I think making the city a little bit more livable for people between the ages of, let's say, 21 and 35.
I mean, a great city has overlapping layers of uses. Jane Jacobs wrote about this all the time. It has families, it has young people, it has college kids, and they're all doing things at different times. And that's how you create stability and safety in communities. In terms of retaining young people in the city, we have work to do. We have to build more housing. We have to create more affordable housing. You shouldn't have to call a politician to get affordable housing.
Right.
You shouldn't have to register with some sort of, list to get affordable housing. The system should work to begin with.
Well, and we also
should be automatic.
And we have to change the way people are talking about what affordable housing is, because a lot of people, I think, still think affordable housing, that means lower income people, but really in the city, affordable housing is for people who used to be called or considered the middle class, who can't afford to buy in the city.
I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a deep subsidy for the artist loft. It's a Section 8 apartment, but it's also someone making, median income. 60,000 is median income in the city. That's a lot of money, but you can't afford to rent or to buy on 60,000, believe it or not. So imagine how hard it is for someone who's at 20,000, 30,000. So we need to, first and foremost, we need to create housing, and then we need to do on-site affordability. I've been suggesting that what we do is we take affordable housing out of the BRA and put it to the Department of Neighborhood Development. Far more transparent, far more easier to follow, have an actual law around inclusionary zoning that can work. I mean, if affordable housing is a principle of our city, and it's certainly a principle of mine, it shouldn't be the first thing we negotiate away. It shouldn't be the thing that we scratch off the list when the developer comes in to negotiate their development deal with the BRA. The community is not part of those conversations, and that's why I'm suggesting we remove that part from the BRA.
Do you think the BRA should stay as it is, or just separate it in that one specific way?
Yeah, some of my colleagues are talking about breaking up the BRA into two pieces or a few pieces. I completely disagree, and I don't think they know what they're talking about. They are talking about taking the development agency in the city of Boston in the middle of a building boom, when cranes are in the air, and breaking it in half and reassembling it, and somehow that's not going to stall out our economy. I mean, be careful. So here's what needs to happen at the BRA, however. Plan first, build second. That's it. We did it in the Fenway. We got together as a community, and let me tell you, there were divergent views in the Fenway. It's not like everyone agrees, and it's like some happy Potemkin village over there. We have the same battles as any neighborhood does, anywhere across the city. That's healthy. That's democracy. But we came together as a community, and we developed a plan that allowed for full development of that community. And there is not a neighborhood in the city of Boston that doesn't want that same rich planning experience. I'll make 3 planning processes available in my first 6 months. 3, and it will be, the communities can raise their hand. I won't force planning on anyone. If they don't want to plan, that's fine, but I think they will. I think that communities will raise their hand and say, yeah, we'd like a real planning process where the client is the neighborhood, where a real architect and real planners and transportation planners and bike planners go out and there's a real discussion about what needs to happen in those sub-neighborhoods. And then we'll build. I mean, and people will, at night, will be able to go out and shop or grab an ice cream cone or grab a dinner.
See, you just did a perfect segue.
That was a segue to FOMO. Yeah.
Which of course I've talked about so many times. People are at home are probably like, could she shut up about the FOMO?
Yeah.
I need to actually mention that Charles Yancey, who I did not ask about the FOMO, did promote FOMO on his Facebook page. He wanted me to make sure that people at home knew that. So if you haven't been to FOMO, I want to encourage you to go there. They have a location in Alston and also in JP on Center Street, and it's the best ice cream in the world.
We'll check it out and we'll say that Seth McCoy sent us.
That's right, and they'll be like, who? And then
no, they'll say, the superstar, Seth McCoy.
Exactly. We're going to segue into something else, and it totally doesn't make sense when we're talking about ice cream. But speaking of development, casino is the big issue on the table right now. Are you for or against the East Boston Casino?
I'm reluctantly for the East Boston Casino. I will say this. Casinos are the wrong road. We should have never gone down them. I love Deval Patrick. This was his one mistake, or his one major gaffe, I think, of his gubernatorial term, and 2 terms. And I just think we made a mistake. But here's where we are: East Boston or Everett. So we can have all the ill effects of a casino and have it in Everett, so it's practically in Boston, right next to Charlestown, and have none of the upside, none of the revenue that we can use to actually, invest in our early education programming, or invest in extending the school day, or invest in putting more substations and police substations in our neighborhoods. Or we can actually do that in East Boston, in a place where there's already somewhat of a racetrack, that type of use. And, the only people that I think that can really make the call on that one, it has to be East Boston residents, because I live in Mission Hill. Where are you?
We're in Fort Hill now.
All right, you're in Fort Hill.
We just bought
Fort Hill's great. So the people in Fort Hill and the people of Mission Hill, to us, whether it's in Everett or East Boston, it's not going to feel different in terms of impact. But to the people of East Boston, it certainly will. And so that's why they should have the vote. But I think and I'll tell you, I think some of my colleagues who are running, they're saying they'll sue Everett.
Right.
I mean, come on. I'm an attorney. Actually, I think it was Dan Conley who said that. He's an attorney.
So he should probably know better.
He should know better. I don't understand. I don't follow the logic there. But
right.
Maybe you can send me a memo on that one.
Maybe he could.
Yeah.
Well, he's not coming on this program for these discussions that
Really?
Other mayoral candidates are, and I want to thank you and all the other candidates who have come on the program. But yeah, there were several, I don't mean to vent, but there were several who we sent the invite and they just chose not to attend. So their loss.
Shocking.
Exactly.
It is their
It's very
loss.
shocking.
Yeah,
especially when you guys have so many forums to go to and trying to get your message out to different people. This, if I may say, this is a great venue to actually talk to the people and let them know what you stand for and give them the opportunity to hear from you, basically one-on-one.
It is, and this kind of plays repeatedly, and
Exactly.
people are, they're at home and they're switching through there,
and they're going to see Mike Ross, and they're going to be like, I need to stop and watch because
Sometimes
Mike
you
Ross
stop
is
and
on.
watch, and you say, let me see what this guy has to say.
That's right.
Yeah, I think
Exactly.
that's a good thing. Yeah.
So anyway, real quickly, public safety is another big issue here in the city of Boston. If you're elected mayor, will you keep the commissioner? Would you look outside for somebody else? We've obviously had a lot of incidents in the last few months and obviously over the years that are of important nature that need to be addressed, some attacks against women, shootings, of course, unsolved cases left and right. How would you handle public safety differently?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I like Ed Davis very much, but I was not one of the candidates who said that I will hire him again because a couple of reasons. One, our police department is not reflective of the communities it serves. Now, I was the first candidate in this race to go strong on that, and now it seems like all the candidates have backed that position. But
Funny how that happens.
It's all right. I mean, it's the right position.
Yeah.
But I was proud to be first on this because it's not okay that there's not a single woman at the senior superintendent level. And it's not okay that there's not a single person of color as a district captain. And if you are trying to create, really the currency of the police department is good information that you get from the people you serve.
Right.
And you won't get good information from the people you serve if you don't come from or look like the community you serve, first. Second, listen, the Amy Lord case is horrific.
Yeah.
And it is the worst type of crime you could see in a city. And the worst thing about it is that it didn't have to happen.
Right.
And human error exists in every industry, and it exists in our police department as well. And we need to have backup systems that protect against human error.
Right.
And we don't. Boston was one of the last cities to have strong technology in the automobile, in the cars, in our detective backup systems. We don't have strong technology. We don't have a leadership that really understands that, and that is now hurting us. And that has to be the change that we make
Right.
in our police department.
And not just in the Amy Lord case. I mean, just the other day, a girl OD'd at the House of Blues, and literally in today's paper, one of the superintendents is talking about, well, we don't know that there's a problem if the DJs and the managers and the bar owners aren't telling us. Part of the police work is to go into those clubs, and I know that they do. There are 2 detectives assigned to the licensing board. They go around to the clubs every night or however they do it, and that's their job, to figure out if there are problems inside the clubs. And if they're not doing it, we need to look at why they aren't and what needs to change.
That's a fair point. I mean, the other thing that I would say is that in our communities, we have kids who are sitting around, and to me, the greatest threat to violence is that, having someone who doesn't have opportunity. I actually think the opposite of violence in many of our communities is actual opportunity. And in investing in our young people early on, investing them through education, sure, but also investing in summer jobs, year-round jobs, community programs, community-based programs, preventive programs, intervening programs that we understand have an effect. We can't just throw money where the loudest noises are coming at, saying, how come we didn't get funded this year?
Right.
We have to put money behind, proven, data-driven programs that we're knowing are having an effect on taking kids out of, violent pathways and bringing them into other options.
So you've given a good summation of why people should vote for you on September 24th. So just quickly tell them your website address so they can go and learn more.
Yeah, I mean, we have a very great feature on our website, mikeforboston.com. That's F-O-R. You can email or you can tweet any question. Someone just asked me what my favorite rap song or rap album was. And I'll go online through a video link and we'll answer your question. So try it out. Try it right now. You can ask, if they're crazy questions, we won't answer it. But they can be any question within limits and reason.
So I'm going to say that NWA, Straight Outta Compton was your favorite rap album, and if not, that was my favorite rap album.
It was Public Enemy, Takes a Nation of a Million to Hold Us Back.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I want to thank you at home for tuning in and paying attention to what's happening in the city. Make sure you vote on September 24th. Real quickly, before we wrap up, I want to wish a happy belated birthday to Hillary, who works here in the studio, and we hope to see you next time. Good night.